Hey there, my name's Marcus Bittner. I'm a musician, composer, and fantasy novelist, and I recently dropped out of business school to become an entrepreneur. One of the things I resolved to do every day when I started this project, Project Failure, is to journal, preferably multiple times per day so that I can really see when I'm doing what, how often I'm doing what. And it started out really well. I was journaling multiple times per day, and then one day I just forgot to do it. The next day I forgot again, and then the whole next week, the week I'm recording this, I didn't do any journaling. So that leaves a bit of a hole in my history where I know I was accomplishing things that day and I know vaguely what I did, but I don't know exactly what. Even if I don't remember everything I did specifically and particularly on the days, I do remember the majority and the most important parts of what I was working on. You know how I mentioned in my last video I built a writing tracker for macOS for Scrivener, and it turned out pretty well. It took me a few months to make, and I have another pretty ambitious project that I want to do for the whole macOS iOS ecosystem, really. But before I get into that, I just wanted to start with a warm-up project. And since I already made a Mac app, I thought, why not make an iOS app? And so the first idea that came to mind for me was a habit tracker app. And I know there are a ton of habit trackers out there already, but none of them really stuck with me. And I think my problem is I love to track too many things at once. So I started designing an app called Habitrio. And if you can't already tell by that, you're only allowed to track 3 habits. No more, no less. Much of what I was working on this last week, unfortunately, is not even going to make the final cut of the app. I feel like I've wasted a lot of time working on these 2 features that I'll go over in a second. See, what I forgot about this app is that it's supposed to be as simple as possible. There's not supposed to be anything cluttering to get in the way of you and your habit tracking. So what I was doing that was creating these distractions is I was designing this cool stained glass texture slash graphic that I thought, well, what if once the user reached their habit goal for the day, the card, instead of being a solid color, would get this stained glass overlay. But after I used it for a while, and when I was adding more features and I kept testing, it just started to look visually cluttered. It didn't fit the aesthetic that I was going for in my original concept. Maybe some people will enjoy that, so maybe I might keep it in the app eventually, who knows? But yeah, I spent way too long working on that, and it's not even in my current version. And so the other thing I was working on that didn't get me anywhere, I made negative progress multiple days because of this, was animations. So the first one was, you know how there's a carousel effect when you swipe through the cards? I was struggling with that a lot. I was trying to implement a very complex physics system to make it so that they're actually in a 3D space, and when you swipe really hard, they'll spin in a circle for a while before slowing down. I could not get that to work for the life of me. I wish I had screen recordings of that stage of development because it looked horrendous. It's working really well now, and that's just because I went in a much simpler direction. Yeah, I wasted a lot of time working on that when I should have been just focusing on functionality first and then moving more to the graphical animation side of things. And the other part that took me so long, that was probably the biggest time sink of the last 2 weeks, was this. I know, that was very, very impressive. No, but that was supposed to be the flash and the sound effect that plays when your regular card with a single color turns into the stained glass card. And that's when I was really excited about the stained glass feature, and so I thought, okay, there has to be the super cool animation that makes it really dramatic and satisfying to cross that goal threshold. And so I designed that sound effect, and I tried to get the flash to work within Xcode, but I didn't know how to animate in there. So then I redesigned it in Apple's Motion app, but then I couldn't export a file that was small sized enough that also had alpha channels, and it didn't work out in the end. And that's okay, because we're now using just the simpler version. What did I learn from those 2 failures? On the one hand, I was making the stained glass. On the other hand, I was fiddling way too much with animations in the early stages when I should have been focused on functionality. Well, yes, my lessons were focus on functionality first and graphics second, and B, research how to do things before you try to do them. Because when I was working on the animation, I was just trying things without even looking to see if there was a better way of going about it, and I sunk hours into that. Those are hours I'm never going to get back. So in the future, even if it's just a little bit of research, I should really see what is the best way for having easy animation editing in Xcode. That probably would have saved me a big headache. On the other hand, though, if I had succeeded with that animation, the flashbang that turned the regular card into glass, I might have kept the glass because I might have been too attached to that. So in a sense, it's almost a blessing that I failed, that I wasn't able to achieve that, because now the app just looks way better. It's way cleaner, there's no clutter, and that is it for today's video and progress update. I could report on some other things, but really there's not much more to report on. I haven't been able to do much, no, that's a lie. I have been able to, I just haven't done much writing lately. I also haven't done nearly enough reading. I've got to work on that in the future. Okay, because I'm terrible with outros, I'll just give you this. Goodbye, come back next week, and God bless.